Hi, Ghosties. I'm Macy.
And I'm Natalie.
And this is Petey. And happy Monday!
Ooh.
Today's episode was chosen by our patrons, and it is definitely a spooky one. It's one of the most haunted houses in the state of Kansas and is up there on the list for the entire US, maybe the world, just out of the volume of physical experiences people have had within its walls. The list is long, including violent outbursts from the spirit and occasionally the people inside the home, scratches that break the skin all over the body, pushing and shoving so hard people have been known to literally fly through the air across the room in a possible spirit of a child, or what may be posing as a child, prominent for decades. It's a wild case, and one that I know will give you a good chill. This is the Sallie house.
I've never heard of it, have I?
I don't think so.
I don't think I
You
have.
haven't talked to me about it anyway.
In Kansas.
In Atchison, Kansas.
All right. I have no prior knowledge of this, and so I have no thoughts. I'm just ready to learn.
Ready to go. All right. Our tea today is from Edinburgh Tea and Coffee Co. It's Heather.
Heather tea. It smells really interesting. So, and it's from someone.
Oh, yeah.
It's from one of you, so thank you.
Yes. Thank you again.
Let's go.
It's a little more bitter. And I don't know if the other Edinburgh teas were, because I put milk in all the other ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't have room because I overfilled my cup with water this time. But good. I think
It's
with
good.
some milk, it would kind of like mellow it out and it'd be really good.
Yeah, I didn't put a lot of sugar in mine. I usually like to have quite a bit, so.
Yeah, there's a fine balance and you can never find it.
I know.
It's either molasses or literally nothing.
The amount of times I've made my tea so full of sugar that it's thick, I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's not good.
So we'll go ahead and get started. If you take a walk through the streets of Atchison, Kansas today, you'll see a simple, small, historic town on the Missouri River. It's known as the birthplace of Amelia Earhart and houses a museum dedicated to the record-setting aviator. It was established as a town in the 1850s and was an important stop along the Missouri River for steamboats, a large stagecoach line, the USPS, the railroad, and for travelers heading west. The town was named after a U.S. Senator and rumored president for a day between James K. Polk and Zachary Taylor, David Rice Atchison. So Atchison, Kansas says, like their website and everything, they have like the smallest little president museum in town for this man. But some scholars say that it's just rumor and it didn't really happen. Either way, cool.
That he was like the president of the
US? So
US?
like Zachary Taylor didn't want to be sworn in on a Sunday. And they used to do swearing in on like March 4th, I think. And March 4th that year fell on a Sunday. And he said, no, I'm not working on a Sunday. You'll have to wait till Monday. And
That's
so
real.
They're saying that, so they're saying that David Rice Atchison said, put me in coach.
That is
President for a day.
one of the funniest things I've ever heard. He's like, I'll do anything, but I'm not working on a Sunday.
Not on Sunday.
That's very me.
But our focus today rests on a quiet residential street lined with homes built in the mid to late 1800s. If you continued your stroll down 2nd Street, you'd never know just by looking that there lies a home so haunted by spirits, so violent, that you have to sign a waiver just to step foot inside. The Sallie House is a 2-story white brick home that has been featured on many, many blogs, national publications, YouTube channels, television shows, and networks, including A&E, the Travel Channel, the Discovery Channel, and Sci-Fi.
Wow.
Several of my favorites.
So maybe I have heard of it because I used to watch those shows a lot.
You might have.
I would watch it and scare the crap out of myself.
This one's really scary.
And not be able to sleep.
Self-proclaimed psychics have come from all over, affirming the claims of some kind of attachment by multiple spirits, and ghost hunters and paranormal investigators have been capturing EVPs and photographic evidence, as well as their own personal anecdotes, since the home opened up for investigations in the 90s. We'll start from the home's beginning and the story behind its name today. It was originally built as a part of a former resident's slew of properties in the city near the time of its founding. Michael and Kate Finney moved to Atchison in 1856 and quickly became prominent members of the community, eventually purchasing several pieces of land along 2nd Street. The Sallie House is thought to have been built sometime between 1867 and 1871 for their son, Dr. Charles Finney. It's believed that Michael actually died in the home in 1872, and that is when Charles took it as his own. Charles was a practicing physician, and some believe he used the rooms downstairs near the front of his home as a medical office, while the family resided upstairs in the bedrooms. This is not a proven fact, as he probably actually practiced medicine elsewhere in town, but local lore says he performed procedures in this home, particularly for emergent cases like the one for which the home is named today. Finney began his medical career at only 18 years old when he worked at the Missouri Pacific Railway Hospital. He earned his medical degree from Beaumont Medical College in 1894 and is said to have established his practice in the Martin Building in Atchison at 5th and Commercial Streets. So there's conflicting stories already. Either he practiced in his home, maybe occasionally, or he actually had an office.
That's like been a thing that we've heard a lot though on like whenever doctors have houses, they're like, oh, he did surgery in this room.
Yeah.
And it's always
Some
scary.
of them did.
It's always scary. In Austin,
Some of them did.
there was that one.
Yes. Some of them did. Just not in every case.
That's so eerie to me.
But it isn't completely out of the realm of possibility that late in the night, if a mother came knocking on the door of the physician's home with her 6-year-old daughter in great pain, the doctor wouldn't attempt to help right there in his home. And that is exactly how the story of the infamous Sallie house begins. It was a dark night in 1905 when a frantic mother arrived at Dr. Finney's home on 2nd Street, holding her young daughter Sallie, who was writhing in pain. She had collapsed from the intensity of her stomachache, and her mother knew something was terribly wrong. Dr. Finney let them in and began an examination on Sallie and quickly realized it was her appendix. It was near rupturing, and the only option he had this late was to perform the surgery then and there to try and save the girl's life. So I think the first hospital in Atchison, I think I read, it opened in like 1913, 1914. So there wasn't a hospital like right
To
in
take
town.
her to. Yeah.
So legend says he laid her on a table and grabbed his scalpel. Without the time for or assistance with an anesthetic, the doctor began cutting into the 6-year-old girl. She was hardly conscious before, but as soon as the knife touched her skin, she cried out in pain and fear, looking into the eyes of this man she barely knew. Sadly, moments later, she took her last breath and died before the procedure was over, her last moments being full of horror.
Is this confirmed?
No.
Oh my God.
Not confirmed, but still a horrible story. There are no records today of a Sallie being operated on in the Finney home or passing there. The known deaths within the house all belong to the Finney family, being Michael in 1872, James Finney in 1900, and finally Charles's mother, Kate, in 1918. The home remained in the Finney name, housing members of the family on and off until 1947, when it was sold. Reports vary here as well. Some say a single woman lived in the home for several decades before selling to the next owner who rented the home out. Others claim it became a rental under her ownership, so the one after the Finneys. But regardless, the home saw several families come in and out of its doors for many years before the Pickmans rented it for their growing family in the 1990s. Prior to this, there weren't really any reports of ghostly activity in the home, and the woman who owned the house after the Finneys insisted it wasn't haunted. But when Tony and Deborah Pickman moved in December of 1992, they almost immediately began experiencing something they could only describe as paranormal activity. Deborah was pregnant with their first child, and they were looking for a home to bring their baby to grow together and find peace during this life transition. They were excited for their 100-year-old home and began decorating one of the upstairs bedrooms immediately, turning it into a nursery full of their baby's furniture and toys. Shortly after, lights would begin dimming for no apparent reason throughout the home, electronics would malfunction, and they noticed sudden temperature changes throughout the day. They chalked this up to it being an older home, thinking it strange, especially when their family dog began growling in the dark corners of the home, particularly towards the nursery door, and their cats would hiss and go crazy for seemingly no reason. But it didn't go further than that for them at that time. But the animals knew before they did. The dimming of the lights happened every single night for the family at first. They even had an electrician come out to take a look, but they couldn't find anything wrong. Tony joked that the home must be haunted, not truly believing in himself at this point, but strangely enough, the lights didn't dim again after that. Almost like it was hiding.
It was like, oh, you caught me.
Their oven timer would inexplicably go off when nobody had set one, and their phone would go dead for several minutes at a time, then begin working again as if nothing happened. They'd be on the phone, and all of a sudden it just like cut for several minutes for no reason. They had people come and look at it. They're like, nothing's wrong. I don't know what you mean. It was all totally unexplainable to the family, but they were focusing on Deborah's progressing pregnancy. So they didn't have a lot of time to, put thought into it.
Worry about a haunting.
They were beginning to think though, like maybe we live in a haunted house. Hee hee ha ha.
Yeah.
That summer, the Pickmans had their first child, Taylor, but this marks a point in time where the strange activity increased in number and intensity. Lights would be turned on in rooms nobody had been in all night. Even their neighbors approached them from time to time, asking them about the lights being on in their home through the night, even when the family wasn't home. They had no explanation for it. Taylor had a room full of toys, particularly teddy bears, because Deborah actually collected them. She loved teddy bears. She had them all over her house, really. The two would often find them knocked to the ground or facing in different directions than it had been when they went into the room last. But that's also, something they could, play off. This could have been because of their pets, so it wasn't a big deal to them at that point. But it was becoming very noticeable. They were starting to clock it. Like, I think that was turned around last time.
Yeah. But for, in that instance, I would just be in denial. I'd be
they had a couple of cats.
Yeah.
And so, and a
the
dog.
cat did it.
Yeah. That same summer is when the first major event took place for the Pickman family. So this is summer of 1993. I think it was around June. The family had been out most of the day and arrived home late. Deborah's sister Karen was staying with them, and this was her last night there, so the three picked up a couple of movies and snacks to bring home for the night. Tony went upstairs to put their baby to bed, but when he turned on the nursery light, he found a strange scene. Several of the dolls and teddy bears were sitting on a ground in a circle, as if having their own little gathering. Tony was a little unsettled by the sight, knowing they weren't home that day, but he thought Deborah may have done it as some sort of prank. So he put Taylor down in his crib to sleep, turned off the lights, and went back downstairs. He asked her about it, laughing it off, but Deborah's face dropped. She hadn't touched the toys, and the last time she saw them, they were all sitting on the shelf where they belonged. The three of them went upstairs to look, but couldn't figure out how they could have been placed in a perfect circle around each other by themselves. They picked up the toys a little unsettled and went back downstairs to continue with their movie night plans. Except, halfway down the stairs, the lights to the nursery came on. They raced back upstairs, and the toys were back on the ground in a circle. They checked rooms and closets throughout the entire house, thinking somebody had to have broken in. Somebody is there with them.
In there.
But they were the only ones. They were sufficiently spooked, but couldn't come up with a rationale for this. So that night, they asked Tony's brother, Larry, to come over. So they're all freaked. He lived just a few minutes away from them, but they needed someone with a clear mind to come over and prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're like, maybe we're working ourselves up. Tony's brother didn't take it too seriously, seeing nothing unusual for himself, but it wasn't long after he arrived that things changed. They conducted a few tests with the bears in the nursery, trying to see if they would move again, but after 3 times and many minutes waiting, nothing happened. They even started feeling foolish. They're like, we worked ourselves up for nothing. This is a fluke. We are crazy. We're sorry we made you come over here. But Larry was about to leave when they all came downstairs for the last time, and that's when Tony noticed a 12-inch, 1-pound bear that was sitting near the TV, which usually faced out towards the room, was now facing the wall, and he had seen it that night facing the room. And this wasn't like a soft little teddy bear. It was kind of like a Beanie Baby type teddy bear. It had
some weight in it.
Yeah. None of them had moved it, and they were sure the last time they saw it, just before going upstairs, it was facing the room. Karen even said, I looked at it. I was looking at the bear, thinking about, oh, how creepy these bears are now that I've seen it in a circle. And she saw it facing the room. It was strange, but still nothing concrete. Larry offered to talk to his boss's sister, who was coming into town soon for a vacation. Her name was Barbara, and she grew up in the area but had moved to California some years ago. Barbara was a practicing psychic, and they hoped maybe she could give them some answers. They agreed, and Larry left back to his house. That night, Deborah, Tony, Karen, and Taylor all slept in the master bedroom.
Absolutely.
Karen was like, please don't leave me down in the living room alone. And Deborah was like, no, I'll sleep with you. And Tony was like, no, don't leave me alone. Together. Yeah, so they all pulled up a mattress in the master bedroom and watched their movie in there.
This is exactly my solution.
I left it in because I knew that you would appreciate that.
I've said it a bunch of times. If I was at your house and something happened,
sleep over.
I'm in your bed. Yeah.
Barbara was contacted, and before she even visited Kansas or got any information about the home and the family, she said that the spirit in their home was a young girl. She could just sense it even from that far away, between the ages of 5 and 13, and she was simply playing with the bears. She also told them that she was harmless, and if they wanted, they should tell the spirit that it was welcome to play in the home, but it had to follow their rules, as it was their house now. Lastly, she said there was a name that came to her. It was overwhelmingly apparent to her that the spirit's name was Sallie.
Oh God.
What struck Deborah about this name is that she had been asking around about previous tenants to see if they had experienced anything strange, and she found that they hadn't. So they didn't have any paranormal activity. Only one of the young children who lived there before had an imaginary friend named Sallie. And she would often blame her for making a mess with her toys. So the mom who lived there right before the Pickmans moved in would complain a lot to like neighbors and friends, saying like, oh, my kids, there's always a mess in their room. I will come in there and help them clean it, and there's always a mess. And they always tell me, it wasn't me, it was Sallie, it was Sallie.
I really hope it's a little kid, because I was going to say, okay, the kid's just playing. But why are they sitting in a circle? That just seems, I don't know, sinister.
I don't know. My first thought about it was like,
Tea party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not long after that first phone call with the psychic, things began to escalate for Tony especially. He had another brother who lived nearby named George, and George was over talking to Tony about all that had been happening to the family. This was like, I don't know, a day after they talked to the psychic. Their picture frames were turning upside down. Candles seemed to be lighting on their own. George and Tony weren't sure what they believed. Was it really the spirit of a young girl causing mayhem? Or was it something explainable by the natural world? George was like, this is a joke. Like, this isn't true. They picked up a camera, jokingly telling Sallie to say cheese as they snapped a photo of a bear in the living room. Right before both of their eyes, the bear twisted around, facing the other direction as the camera shutter went off. They captured a photo of the moment, though it isn't more than a blur. So you can see like everything around the camera is fine. And then where the bear sits, it's like this like wavy, blurry mess.
I'm not a fan.
Very
I'm
creepy.
not a fan at all.
Tony took off upstairs where Deborah and the baby were, but George couldn't move. It felt as if he were cemented in place, incapable of moving his legs. He was like, Tony, I can't move. I can't run. They all decided that it might be best to spend the night at Tony's mom's house. They're like, this is getting too creepy for me.
Yep.
So they all loaded up in the car, Deborah helping load up the bags while Tony buckled the baby into his car seat. That's when Tony felt a stinging on his back. It was as if he had been bitten or stung by some kind of bug. But they were in a hurry to get out of there, so he put it to the back of his mind and just got into the car. When they finally made it to his mom's house, just a few minutes down the road, he could still feel the stinging on his back. So he and Deborah lifted his shirt to take a look, and right there, for no discernible reason, Tony had 3 deep claw marks across his back. It was as if someone had scratched him, breaking skin and causing him actual harm. And this was only the beginning.
This is disgusting, and it doesn't feel like a kid anymore.
Barbara spoke with Deborah just a few days later, so they called Barbara back. And they were like, hey, things are getting weird. Like, things are lighting on fire in our house.
Oh my God.
She claimed that Sallie only wanted to protect the baby and be a part of the family, and it was suggestive that Deborah treat Sallie like any young child.
Oh.
If she was doing something in the home that scared them or caused trouble, then she should be firm and set boundaries with the little girl. She was to reprimand her for being naughty and treat her kindly and respectfully, letting Sallie know she appreciated her attempts at helping, but it wasn't helpful and she needed to stop. So just be very firm and treat her like any young child. Deborah was completely convinced that it must be the spirit of a child in her home. She would go on to treat her as such, reading books aloud to Sallie, telling her goodnight before bed, and even saying it was fine if Sallie would like to come and cuddle with her at night.
Why?
She even bought Sallie a doll of her own, wrapping it up as a gift for her. Oftentimes, Deborah would walk into the room in which the wrapped doll was placed and find it in a different location than she had left it, just like with the bears. It all seemed to help Deborah calm down about the haunting, and even helped her when it came to experiencing strange encounters in the home. Tony, though, was more skeptical and wanted nothing to do with any of it.
Why is she doing the most? All she said was, be firm. Don't say, come cuddle with me, here's a present.
She also asked Barbara, like, could I get her a doll? Would that, like, appease her? Would that make her happy? Get her own toys so she'll stop messing with Taylor's toys? She felt in her new mommy heart that she was helping a little girl, a child who was lost in the spiritual realm and just wanted a family. Because that's what Barbara told them. Like, she just wants to be a part of the family. She just really likes you, and she likes Taylor, and she just really wants to be loved and respected in the home.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, me personally, I wouldn't, just because I'm just going to not acknowledge it because I don't want it to escalate just in case. Because like you said, it's always a demon in my mind.
You think everything's a demon, especially if it's disguised as a kid.
But I can see, like, wanting to love and protect this ghost girl. Like, if you really think it's a little girl, like, I get it. I understand.
I get it, but at the same time, no.
Things continued to escalate for the family, and in particular for Tony. The TV would turn on and off on its own. The ceiling fans and lights would continue turning on when nobody was in the room. The family experienced hot and cold spots all throughout the home, and their belongings would move around. Candles continued lighting on their own, though Deborah would scold Sallie for doing things that caused harm to the family.
Mm-hmm.
There were even points when the candles in the wall sconces looked as though they had been lit, but Deborah had never lit those decorative candles. They were there for decoration. And some of the wax was melting up towards the wick rather than down to the base.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I saw a picture and I don't know. It was on like a little documentary. I don't know if this was like a real picture from the house or if it was just some random photo, but they made it seem like it was a real photo, and it was literally like candle wax dried in a drip up towards the like burned wick.
What?
Very weird. It was all very strange. And this wasn't the only thing being lit on fire either. One afternoon, while Deborah's sister was once again visiting the home, she watched as a bear, the same bear she witnessed move in the living room, spontaneously combust. There was no flame or heat source near the bear. It simply went up in flames out of nowhere. This frightened the Pickman family, worried that all of these fires coming from nothing could cause harm to the house and themselves. Their cats could knock over a candle while they were asleep or out and about that day. And if toys were now being caught on fire, that meant nothing was safe. But the worst of it all were the physical attacks against Tony.
It's not worse than... Wait, what's worse than spontaneously combusting?
Being physically attacked, I think.
Personally. Your house just being randomly set on fire? Oh, what are we talking about?
Spontaneous combustion interests me.
I was going to say that, but let's save that for another time. I have thoughts.
Okay. Another day.
I have a lot of questions more than thoughts, but...
Yes. He was scratched, hit, and pushed on numerous occasions. He would find himself covered in bloody scratch marks with no possible reason for them. He was beginning to be really affected by all of the activity and frankly a little scared. Tony was hearing whispers and scratching in the walls and through the house that Deborah couldn't hear. His mood was beginning to change and he was exhausted from interrupted sleep. Taylor seemed to be woken up many nights with screams and was so loud and nearly inconsolable, like maybe something was hurting him too. Tony even saw full body apparitions in the home. The first time he was in the kitchen getting something from the fridge when he turned and came face to face with a little girl. She was young, looking as he described closer to 5 than she would be 7, and she had a bow in her hair. She disappeared as quickly as she appeared, but he got a good enough look to be able to draw what he had seen. And he was a pretty good sketch artist. So he drew this little girl. She was dressed in like 1800s attire, big bow in her hair, and just a small child. Deborah was continuing her strategy of talking to the spirits in the house as if it were a young child, telling her the rules of the home and treating her with kindness. But Tony was beginning to suspect there was something more in the home than a troublesome child. He felt there may have been something darker lurking in the shadows of this old house. They captured several photos of strange blurs and shadows that shouldn't have appeared in frame, and Deborah seemed to agree there was something more living with them at this point.
Now they're thinking that?
Deborah was. I think Tony was thinking from the beginning, like, I don't know.
I mean, I guess I get it. If you're like a new mom and you're like, your heart is extra soft to kids, but it's my house. We're not doing that.
Very creepy. By February of 1994, Tony was losing more and more sleep from all the experiences he endured. And I think he worked nights most of the time. So it was during the day being just constantly woken up.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd rather be haunted during the day than during the night, I think.
Because at least you can see.
You can see everything going on.
If you want to see everything going on.
Yeah.
He was sure he saw the figure of a woman walk down the hall right in front of him. Then a few days later, he was sitting down to watch TV, but the remote was missing. Not able to find it, Tony decided to take a nap in silence instead. But it wasn't long after he drifted off that he was woken up to a tap on the shoulder. He blurrily looked up and saw a woman placing the remote next to him, saying, "Tony, here's your remote," before disappearing from his sight. He thought it was Deborah, but when he talked to her about it later, she insisted it wasn't her in there, and she had no idea what he was talking about.
Well, that's helpful.
That one's helpful.
That's okay.
But another notable sighting happened once again while Tony was lying down to sleep. He was in his bed when he noticed by the window particles moving around like specks of dust. Like in the window when light's shining in, you could see the dust floating. It was like that. And he watched as these specks increased in size and were turning darker until eventually they formed into the shape of a woman. He began to panic, breathing heavily and trying to scoot away as she came around the side of his bed. He couldn't move. She reached a laced, gloved hand out at him, saying, "I'm gonna," and then disappeared altogether. Like she was coming for him.
Oh my God. I'm gonna what?
Get him.
Oh my God.
Tony was horrified and tried to run out of the room, calling out for Deborah, but the door was locked and he couldn't get out. Tony was at his breaking point. The family decided they needed to bring in a medium to try and rid themselves of the spirits. Though Deborah didn't want Sallie to go necessarily, she still felt soft for Sallie. Sallie had told Barbara that she loved the house and this was her home, so Deborah was hesitant to force the young child out because it was her home before it was Deborah's home. They decided to allow a ghost hunting crew to come into their home and capture evidence as well. They were hoping for anything to not only prove themselves that this was all real and not just in their heads, but also to help them live a peaceful life in their home. So when the medium visited the home, Deborah was also kind of smudging and trying to like cleanse the air. And she is said to have sensed not only Sallie, but an older woman, a motherly figure, as well as an older gentleman. She said they didn't seem mean. They were just kind of curmudgeonly.
They were just a whole family.
Yeah. She asked that they leave the house. While walking upstairs with the medium, Tony was shoved so hard that he flew out of his boots and fell against the wall, several feet from where he had been standing. Out of his shoes. His laced up shoes.
That is so embarrassing.
There had to be something more than a defenseless child residing in their home. Embarrassing?
Yes.
That's horrifying.
If I fell, that's one thing, but if I fell out of my shoes.
He didn't fall out of his shoes. He flew out of his shoes across the room.
Embarrassing. You're gone, but your shoes are still standing where you were.
Yes. He was like 3 or 4 feet away from his shoes where he landed.
Tell me you wouldn't be embarrassed a little bit.
No, I think he was like knocked unconscious.
That's worse.
Bad.
That is so much worse.
It was bad.
Waking up confused.
With no shoes on.
I'd be so embarrassed.
The show Sightings came in several times and conducted investigations of their own about the Pickman family's claims. Even the home's owner, Les Smith, was experiencing strange activity at this point. He claimed to come to the house the day the group arrived to make sure the house was ready and lock up when they were done, as Deborah and Tony weren't staying there while they were filming. He was a huge skeptic and didn't really believe anything that was going on, but just as a silly little thing for himself. He called out before he left that if Sallie didn't want people investigating, to let him know. He wrote his phone number down and said to call the number twice, ringing twice each time. He just said it aloud, like, oh, if you're real, if you're here, you don't want people to investigate, just do this thing. The next day, as he was leaving the house, once again, the phone rang. It rang 2 times before he picked it up, but no one was on the other line. So he put the phone down and began walking out again when the phone rang a second time. He stopped dead in his tracks, and the ringing stopped after the second ring. He picked it up anyway, and at that time, there was nothing but static on the other line.
Well, there's your answer. Don't let them come in.
Well, the investigative group did come in and captured EVPs, photos and videos of strange occurrences, and even saw for themselves Tony getting scratched right before their eyes. There's a clip from the show that centers Deborah and Tony with headphones on. I watched this clip. It was a part of the documentary. Surrounded by all the equipment and just listening while the investigators did their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, Tony jumps back, taking his headphones off like he's been hurt or pinched or something. He just like moves back, and Deborah kind of freaked out. It's like, what's, are you okay? Turns to him, but Tony's complaining about feeling pain on his abdomen. He lifts his shirt, and right there, they saw his hair had been singed.
Hello?
It looked as though someone had held a fire up to his body, leaving his hair darkened and burning. During the investigation, Tony's body was carved into with scratches and blood all over his body. He was attacked at least 11 times while the sightings crew was there.
Tony, leave.
There were pictures of Tony's back that just like scratched up, like a cat had attacked him.
Why is he there?
Trying to get answers. They live there.
They don't want him there.
No. The singe marks on the hair from under his shirt. And you know how when you burn hair, if it touches something, like it falls, it crumbles, it falls apart. No, it hadn't fallen apart. He lifted his shirt and it hadn't fallen apart. It looked like someone had just held a lighter up to his stomach.
Why?
And he was singed.
Why is there so much fire?
I don't know. The psychic had an explanation or a theory. I do not remember what she said, but it was something like Sallie had a force field of some kind, something like that around her that was just very energetic and
would catch things
was
on fire?
capable of doing so, I guess.
Okay.
And I just like read that in passing, so I skimmed. There is a book if you're interested. I'll put it in the description. I don't remember what it's called right now, but Deborah Pickman wrote it, and I didn't get a chance to read the entire thing. I just ran out of time, but I kind of skimmed certain parts, and I did see that in there. The voices and the scratching in the walls was intensifying for Tony, and he was not only being scratched at this point, but also bitten and bruised. He had a bite mark on his leg.
Wrap it up.
It's
time to go.
Yeah, something did not like Tony in his own home and was making it known that he wasn't welcome. He was incredibly uncomfortable and wasn't sure what to do. He was having nightmares of being dragged out of his bed and left with small fingerprints on his body when he woke up. He was becoming irritable, angry, paranoid, and aggressive when he had never been that way before. It's bringing to mind Amityville Horror.
I was going to say that too.
He was beginning to have blackouts. He was missing time and wasn't always sure what happened in those small windows. It wasn't very large amounts of time, but still. And he blamed it on sleep deprivation. He thought he just wasn't getting enough sleep. And this is what was causing it all.
Is it trying to like possess him or push him to a point to where he does something bad?
Well,
oh no.
Here we go. It was becoming harder and harder for Tony to handle everything that was happening to him, and it led him to be incredibly violent. He had thoughts of harming his wife, the wife he loved and would never think about laying a finger on, the mother of his child. He was now plotting and planning horrible acts. Just not of his own volition. He would sit down and these thoughts would come into his mind. So trigger warning for this next little part for animal cruelty and death. Just putting that out there. It's very bad. So I'm sorry. You can cover your ears if you want and just not react to it.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Just say it.
Okay. One particular morning, he was sitting downstairs after getting home from work on the night shift. Deborah had just left for work and he was on his own, in his own head, just, what he'd been doing.
Stewing.
He remembers getting up to make himself a bowl of cereal, but when he turned to put the milk away, somehow a stray cat, which he didn't realize had gotten into their house, made its way to the table and was eating out of his bowl. He grew enraged, angrier than he had ever been before in his life, and the next thing he knew, he found himself grabbing a knife from the counter and killing the cat right there on the table.
I don't have anything to say to that.
Okay.
That's really horrible. And also, if I was Deborah, that would be the end. I would have to leave. This is getting...
Yeah. So he and his wife loved their animals, and he had never purposely hurt one before, but this was beyond anything he had ever experienced. He left everything in the kitchen as it was and went back to the living room. He sat on the couch, thinking to himself that he might just stab his wife too.
Okay. Was he?
He was never like this before.
Okay.
This is not something he had ever dealt with before.
Okay.
And he had been praying this whole time, and I read at the back of the book that there were they had a theory that maybe his prayers, because Deborah was accepting it and Tony was praying against it, and that the prayers maybe pissed it off.
Yeah.
Also, there was another part in the book that I accidentally skimmed through, and it was very horrendous, and it was an accident, and I'm not even going to mention it, but it was very bad.
Okay,
so if you do read the book,
have to mention
if you do read the book, just trigger warning for animal death and cruelty.
Oh, so it's worse than that?
Yeah.
Okay, well then never mind.
But it was an accident. It was an accident.
If it's
but
animals,
it was worse.
I don't want to know. Y'all can look that up.
It was worse. There were 2 instances where he was pushed with such force, he was nearly severely harmed. So that first time with the medium. And the last one occurred one afternoon as he walked out of the bedroom. It was just a couple of days after this incident, and he was in a horrible mood, thinking about his wife and becoming filled with hatred. For no reason. They weren't fighting. There was nothing wrong. He was just stepping through the threshold when he felt a large force push him from behind straight into the stair railing. So it was like a bar over, like he could have fallen. He was slammed so intensely against the stairs, he nearly fell over and knocked several of the wooden balusters out of place. He kicked them out and he almost fell. And this was the final straw for them. Tony told his wife about the push and he began seeing a priest, knowing that whatever was going on within him wasn't himself. Something was happening to him.
Okay.
He had been praying for protection throughout this time and in the home, and it seemed to only anger whatever was coming for him. He was being overcome by the darkness and negativity in that house, and now it was clear they needed to get out. 2 weeks later, the family packed up all their belongings and moved out of the Sallie house. Tony's mood changed drastically, and the family was finally able to move on with their lives, unburdened physically by whatever it actually was calling that old house home, but it has stuck with them, to this day. It still is something in the back of their mind.
This is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's very horrible. Over the years, hundreds of people have come in and out of that house, doing investigations of their own, and nearly everyone who has gone into that home has experienced some kind of strange phenomenon. Equipment will completely stop working while they are there. Batteries will inexplicably drain after being fully charged. Objects move. Footsteps up and down the stairs have been heard, and worst of all, many people have experienced being pushed and scratched, just like Tony. Although not to the degree. Trained guide dogs have absolutely refused to go into the nursery in some of the closets. They just won't.
Wow.
And they're trained to go and sniff around and do this job.
Yeah.
They won't. They will sit outside and whine. Some of the neighbors living next door have even had their own experiences that seem to be linked to, or at least associated in some way with the Sallie house, like right next door neighbors. There are, of course, the theories of Sallie actually being a young girl who died in the home many years ago, like we talked about in the beginning. But like I said, there are no known links to a Sallie within the home. There's no history, no documents, no reports, nothing. There were no reports of a death like the one done to the young girl in the legend. There are some who believe the spirits could just be those of the Finney family. It's possible there are jealous or angry spirits of those who lived there before. Maybe they are just powerful enough to move all the objects and even physically harm residents and visitors. Maybe they're just really angry spirits with unfinished business.
Why?
But
Why are they angry?
I don't know. But there is also another theory. It's possible that Sallie isn't who she claims to be. Maybe the psychics and mediums and even Deborah, who felt the sensations within the house, were deceived. Deborah acknowledging and accepting the entity in their home, thinking she was doing good and helping a lost little girl, was actually, maybe, giving it power and the ability to cause more harm.
Exactly.
It's very possible that what the Pickmans were dealing with was something so dark and demonic. It's possible that they had a demonic obsession and near possession.
I 100% think so.
There are claims that a tenant who lived in the house before the Pickmans was into the darker side of the paranormal and may have practiced something dark inside the home. There are rumors of a summoning done down in the basement, but again, none of this is proven and seems to only add to the lore. So I don't know if people have heard from a friend who heard from a friend, or if it's like just something that people have come up with, like this must be
to justify, to make sense of everything.
The dark activity there. More tenants moved in after the Pickmans, and it seems they experienced a taste of what Deborah and Tony endured for over a year. Eventually, the home was turned into an attraction, a place where people can come in for daytime tours and investigations, as well as overnight hunts. People come from all over and have experienced the haunting of the Sallie house. Many believe that there really is a little girl in the home, even still to this day. Some believe, yes, there is Sallie, but there are also other things within. She's known to play with toys and likes messing with cell phones, and some kids who have visited have claimed to see a little girl playing underneath the bed.
Oh, my God. Why under the bed?
I don't know. Don't look under the bed.
Stop.
Whether it's the ghost of a child, the former owners of the home, other spirits from years prior, or something much darker, there are rules that must be followed when you visit, just in case. No attempts at cleansing the spirits from the home, just in case it is just a few resident ghosts. But also, absolutely no seances or Ouija boards, in case the darkness could grow stronger, or even a new darkness waiting in the periphery be let in.
Well, those are the general rules of my life, so that's good.
Yeah, solid rules, I'd say. Horrifying. Terrifying. So scary. All the words.
Okay, so I get really mixed feelings whenever it turns into like Family Annihilator type territory with the dad. Was he blaming his thoughts on that, or what? Like, like
was he really having some kind of depression, or men get postpartum too?
Was he having some kind of mental issue, and then he's just saying, "Oh yeah, the spirits are making me want to harm people," but
or were they really having like a
near possession?
Well,
that thing?
I mean, obviously, I lean more towards that because that's just where my mind goes, but. Like, was he actually having trouble sleeping? Did they have a ghost? Did they have spirit that was a trickster spirit that was keeping him from sleeping? And his lack of sleep, his being a new dad, the stress of all of this weighing on him and causing him like a dark depression.
Creates more.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
I mean, I watched several interviews, and I mean, you can only tell so much from an interview. But after they left the house, they seeed fine. Yeah.
They stayed together?
In the epilogue of the book, through... As far as I know, through the writing of the book, they were still together. I don't know them today. I don't really want to look up their lives today.
Yeah.
They're out of there. I don't want to,
pry
in there. But yeah, after they seemed fine, they moved on. They still thought about it. They still talked about it. I mean, she wrote a whole book about it.
Yes.
But yeah, they were fine. He didn't have bad thoughts like that.
That is really, really interesting. And the fact that nothing else happened when they left makes me think like, well, maybe it is true.
I don't know. I do not know, but it is horrifying. There was also another connection. I almost put it in the episode, but it was just, I don't know. it was too much to add to this because it was kind of unrelated. But from our Patreon episode, the Villisca Axe House murder, there was a guy who worked at the house. His name was Johnny Hauser. I don't remember if you remember his name. He did tours and like let people in and stuff. And he's an investigator himself. He does paranormal investigations all over the world. He had like Deborah and Tony Pickman came to visit the Villisca Axe House. And when they walked in, Tony said that he was like, what was in our house feels like it's in here. This is what Johnny Hauser said, okay? And then he said that he walked into the bedroom downstairs with the two young girls. And he started gagging and he threw up a like chunk of bacon.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because there was bacon left.
Yeah. So that's what that's what Johnny Hauser said. He said,
okay, hold on. For anybody that hasn't watched that or doesn't know, that's on our Patreon, but
yeah.
In that room, two girls were taken from this world. And they randomly, there was like a big slab of bacon found in there, like the perpetrator
like wrapped it up, took it out of the cooler and like placed it there and forgot it.
Yeah, like they were going to take it with them. That is disgusting.
And Johnny was like, either he is nuts, swallowed a giant slab of bacon and then just came to the house just to throw up and do it for some guy who works there, ? Or something weird is happening and there may or may not be a connection to the houses, maybe.
Tony,
and Johnny
you're in danger.
I'm in danger. Johnny had several he tried to go to the Sallie house several times, like 2 or 3 times, and each time he left before the night ended because he said there was something dark in there.
This is disgusting.
It was very weird. That was at the I think it was called Haunted Roads podcast. Haunted Road. Yeah. I listened to his interview there. That was very creepy.
That is disgusting.
A very strange connection.
I hate that.
The fact that we did that episode too this month was just weird.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome.
That episode was also very dark and disturbing and sad. So thank you for traumatizing me further.
You're welcome. So like I said, if you'd like to know more from Deborah's point of view, you can go read her book. You know what? Let me pull it up real quick. I'll also put it in the description, but it is called The Sallie House Haunting, A True Story by Deborah Pickman. I will go back and read this. I just did not have the time to read it this week, but I'm definitely going to go read this month just to see if there's anything I missed.
I will not.
Very, very, very creepy. And I land my final thoughts. It's a demon.
Yeah.
Like that's where I land.
I think that's where I'm landing too.
Really?
Yeah, but also Tony, I'm keeping one eye open.
No.
Always on Tony.
I'd like to know if Taylor grew up to...
Oh, the son?
Yeah. See anything. Because he's in his like 30s now. Early 30s. I wonder if he remembers anything or has had any strange things happen since then.
That would be really interesting to know his point of view.
But that's it for today. Thank you for being here. Like this video if you liked it. Share it with your friends if you feel compelled to do so. And subscribe for more. If you are listening on audio, please leave us 5 stars. That would be very helpful too. And share with your friends. Anybody who likes a good spooky tale. If you want to follow us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/ghosties. You can also pay by episode. So if you do not care what we have to say about anything else and you just want to go listen to like the Villisca Axe House murder episode by us, you can do whatever you like, man. You can follow us on Instagram at GhostiesPod, and that's it. I don't think I have anything else.
Yep, we will see you on Thursday
and Friday with a new costume.
Yes. Goodbye.